this episode, we're going to focus on something that can feel confusing at first, but becomes a major advantage once you get the hang of it, which is using more than one model to understand the same intrusion. Beginners often want one perfect framework that explains everything, because having one map feels simpler than juggling several. The problem is that intrusions are messy, and no single model captures every useful angle with the right level of detail. One model might be great for understanding sequence, another might be great for understanding relationships, and a third might be great for turning analysis into decisions. Blending models does not mean stacking buzzwords, and it does not mean making a report look impressive. It means using the strengths of each model to check your thinking, fill gaps, and make your conclusions more defensible. When you blend models well, you reduce the chance of being fooled by incomplete evidence, and you increase the chance that your recommendations actually help defenders. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good place to start is to recognize what different models are designed to do, because that design intent tells you how to use them. The cyber kill chain, CKC, is strongest when you want to understand progression, meaning how an adversary moves from initial contact to impact through a series of steps. The diamond model of intrusion analysis, DMIA, is strongest when you want to understand relationships, meaning how adversary, capability, infrastructure, and victim interact, and how those pieces can link events into campaigns. Another common model you will hear about later is MITRE ATT&CK, which is a knowledge base of tactics and techniques that helps you describe adversary behavior in a consistent vocabulary, especially useful for detection and hunting. Each one answers a different question. The kill chain helps with what happened next, the diamond helps with who and what is connected, and ATT&CK helps with how it was done in a repeatable language. If you only use one, you will often miss either the sequence, the linkages, or the operational specifics that defenders need. Blending models begins with choosing a primary lens for the moment, because trying to apply everything at once can create confusion. Early in an incident, sequence is often the most urgent need, because you need to know where the attacker is in their progress and what they might do next. That is where the kill chain can serve as the backbone, letting you place evidence into stages like delivery, execution, persistence, command and control, and actions on objectives. Once you have a backbone, you can bring the diamond in to clarify the relationships behind those stages, such as what infrastructure is enabling command and control and what capability is being delivered. This is like building a skeleton first and then adding muscle, because the structure comes before the nuance. The result is that your analysis feels organized even when evidence arrives out of order. For beginners, this step alone reduces panic because you always know where to park new observations. Now let's talk about how blending models actually strengthens conclusions, because the benefit is not just organization but accuracy. A conclusion becomes stronger when it is supported from multiple angles that converge on the same story. For example, suppose you think you have identified the initial access method as a phishing email based on user reports and email metadata. The kill chain supports this by placing the email in delivery and by prompting you to look for execution signs. The diamond supports it by identifying the victim as a specific user and endpoint, and by pushing you to identify the capability as the payload and the infrastructure as any remote destinations contacted. If those pieces line up, your conclusion about initial access is stronger than if you only relied on one clue. If they do not line up, you have learned that your story may be incomplete or wrong. Blending models gives you structured ways to test whether the story holds together. A particularly useful blending pattern is to use the kill chain for timeline and the diamond for linkage, because these two complement each other naturally. The kill chain helps you arrange events into a plausible progression, which is critical when you have dozens or hundreds of log entries. The diamond helps you decide whether those events are part of the same intrusion or separate intrusions that happen to occur near each other. For example, two hosts might show suspicious outbound traffic, and the kill chain would place both in the command and control stage. The diamond would ask whether the infrastructure is the same, whether the capability is similar, and whether the victims share context that suggests a single campaign. If the infrastructure overlaps, but the capability does not, you might be looking at shared compromised infrastructure rather than a shared adversary. If the capability overlaps, but the infrastructure does not, you might be looking at an operator using multiple infrastructure nodes, which is common. This type of reasoning strengthens your conclusion because you are not relying on one kind of match. Another blending pattern is to use a model to generate hypotheses and another model to constrain them. The kill chain can generate hypotheses by showing which stages are missing evidence, such as a gap between delivery and installation. That gap may prompt hypotheses like exploitation of a vulnerable service or use of stolen credentials. The diamond can constrain those hypotheses by focusing on what you can actually observe for each vertex. If you have no sign of infrastructure consistent with remote exploitation and you do have signs of credential misuse, the constraint shifts your hypothesis toward identity compromise. This reduces the risk of storytelling, where you create a narrative that sounds plausible but is not anchored in evidence. It also helps you communicate uncertainty honestly, because you can say the kill chain suggests a missing stage and the diamond shows which vertex evidence is absent. That is a much more disciplined statement than simply saying we are not sure. Blending models also helps you avoid common beginner traps, especially the trap of overvaluing one type of evidence. Beginners often overvalue malware artifacts like hashes and file names because they feel concrete. The diamond reminds you that capability is broader than artifacts and that infrastructure and victim context matter just as much. The kill chain reminds you that artifacts alone do not explain sequence, such as how the malware arrived or what it did after execution. When you blend them, you are less likely to declare victory because you found the malware file. You start asking whether persistence exists, whether command and control continues, and whether the victim context suggests broader exposure. This directly improves your defensive actions because you do not stop at the easiest visible clue. Instead, you move through a disciplined set of questions that reduces the chance of leaving the attacker in place. It is also helpful to blend models when you are making decisions about prioritization, because decisions are where analysis becomes real outcomes. The kill chain helps you decide which stage is active, and active stages often require immediate action, like disrupting command and control or stopping lateral movement. The diamond helps you decide where action will have the most leverage, such as whether blocking a piece of infrastructure will affect multiple victims or whether a capability trait suggests a broader campaign. Together, they help you select courses of action that are proportionate and targeted. For example, if the diamond shows the same infrastructure touched multiple victims, blocking that infrastructure might have high leverage. If the kill chain suggests you are late stage and actions on objectives are underway, you may prioritize protecting sensitive data stores and monitoring for exfiltration rather than spending hours debating initial access. Blending models keeps decision-making grounded and aligned to what changes outcomes. When you blend models, you should also pay attention to how they help you communicate, because clear communication is part of a strong conclusion. A conclusion is not only the statement you believe, it is the statement others can understand and act on. The kill chain gives you a narrative arc that is easy to follow, like this is how it started, this is how it progressed, and this is where it is now. The diamond gives you the key entities that make the story concrete, like which victims, which capabilities, and which infrastructure elements are involved. Together, they allow you to speak to technical teams and leadership without changing the underlying truth. Technical teams may want to act on capability and infrastructure details, while leadership may want to understand victim impact and adversary intent. A blended conclusion can serve both audiences by offering the sequence and the relationships in one coherent picture. A critical part of blending models is knowing when not to blend, because forcing every model into every situation can create noise. If you have a simple, well-contained incident, the kill chain alone might be enough to guide response without building a complex linkage picture. If you are doing campaign analysis across many incidents, the diamond might be the primary tool and the kill chain might be used only for selected event sequences. The point is that blending is purposeful, not automatic. You choose models because each adds something that changes your confidence or improves your actions. If a model does not add new clarity, you do not use it just to look thorough. Beginners often think more complexity equals more intelligence, but mature analysis is the opposite, where you use the minimum structure needed to be clear and correct. Another way blending strengthens conclusions is by making inconsistencies visible early, before they become embarrassing later. If your kill chain narrative says the attacker delivered malware via email, but your diamond analysis shows no victim user interaction and instead shows a pattern of inbound exploitation attempts against a service, you have a contradiction. That contradiction is useful because it tells you to revisit assumptions and collect more evidence. If your diamond suggests the same capability is being used across incidents, but your kill chain sequences differ dramatically and do not share meaningful stages, you might be dealing with separate operators using the same tool. This is exactly how you avoid overlinking, which is the mistake of merging unrelated events into one story because it feels neat. Blending models acts like a consistency check, and consistency checks are what make conclusions more defensible. A defensible conclusion is one that survives scrutiny, not one that sounds confident. To make blending practical, you can think of your work as moving through 3 passes, even if you do not formally call them passes. First, you create a simple sequence of what you know, using the kill chain to label where each piece fits. Second, you map the key entities involved using the diamond, filling in adversary, capability, infrastructure, and victim as evidence allows. Third, you compare the two and look for convergence or conflict, adjusting your understanding accordingly. This process can be done quickly and informally, and it does not require a special tool or a complicated diagram. What matters is that you are using models to guide thinking rather than using them as decorations. As a beginner, practicing this mental workflow is one of the fastest ways to improve analysis quality. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes to see both sequence and relationships at the same time. As we wrap up, blending multiple models strengthens conclusions because it gives you more than one way to test your story against evidence. The kill chain helps you understand progression and likely next steps, while the diamond helps you understand relationships and linkage across events, and together they reduce both confusion and overconfidence. When you use them purposefully, you can spot gaps, avoid common evidence traps, choose better defensive actions, and communicate more clearly to different audiences. The key is to blend with intent, using a primary lens for the moment and bringing in the second lens to add clarity or check consistency. If you keep that discipline, your conclusions will become more reliable, and the people acting on your analysis will trust it more because it is coherent and grounded. In intrusion analysis, trust is earned through clarity and restraint, and blending models is one of the best ways to build both.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.